So this is going to be a quick video on my ZAPP trades, and then also how you can use filings to anticipate negative catalysts. In this case, F1 registration coming out. Starting with that, if you haven't been following ZAPP, they had this securities purchase agreement where it kind of acts like an ATM, where the buyer gets to buy at a discount to VWAP, and then they sell the shares. It's not like an ATM because there's a limit to how much they can buy and sell at a time. So obviously, as you can see here, it didn't put a whole lot of pressure on the stock during this whole time. But when you get those and also private placements and things that haven't been registered yet, oftentimes they do what's called a registration rights agreement, which is basically like, hey, we agree to this deal, but you need to file a registration registering the shares for resale in a certain amount of time. So then you can anticipate that filing come out. In a lot of cases, especially in big charts like this, it puts pressure on the stock because people don't want to be holding long when the filing comes out because it acts as like a negative catalyst. So in this case, you can see if I go into the summaries here, we flag upcoming dates and catalysts in the summary. So here you see the filing deadline for the initial registration statement is within 30 days. So we can kind of anticipate that it'll be coming out within a certain time frame from this date here. We also flag it in the insights, catalysts and key dates. So you see the filing deadline for the registration statement is within 30 days. So going into the trade, my whole thesis was basically that they had completed the other purchase agreement and the other one isn't registered yet. So now it's like they don't really have a reason to pump the stock anymore because they're not trying to sell shares or raise money right now. So that was one part of it. And then the other part was that the filing was coming out. And I know that oftentimes that can put pressure on the stock going into that filing coming out. So my first trade was a loss because it didn't follow my plan. And this video is going to be more around like, oh, I made a great trade. It's more about this is kind of like a trade idea that you can use moving forward, and possibly you could execute it better than I did. But essentially on this day, what I had written as my plan was I was looking for a breakout and fail on this day. Or if it did fail, that's fine, but I would just get it back under here. It didn't do either. But I just got impatient and I got in just here, kind of in no man's land, and I got squeezed out, as you can see here. Got in here and then got out there. So that was the first one. And then it did break out. It didn't necessarily fail though, because it's still holding. So this is still essentially, it could be a long setup, which is good because if it fails, as I'll show you in another trade, it makes for an even better short when it fails. But again, I got in a little early. So that was this one here. You see, I got in right here because I thought it was breaking down right there. But again, it's, as it gets closer to this trend line, it's a little bit of a higher probability trade when it gets closer to breaking the trend line. After this is basically like a long setup fails. This was more reasonable than this one over here because it was kind of like a long setup failing right here. So this is definitely more reasonable than this one. It would have been nice to eliminate at least one of those losses. But I did get back in and make it up and more actually with this one. And it would have been nice if I was able to swing it. So I got in here. I actually swung it. It was hard to even like get in because if you look at the 1 minute chart, it dropped like immediately out the gate. There's a lot of panic again because this is kind of like a long setup. So anyways, yeah, I got in there. I couldn't swing it because I could have, but the borrow rate was 800%, so I didn't. So ultimately didn't really realize a ton from this trade, but it's still a good setup to review, I think. So anyways, I still think it has more downside to it because probably you'll see an S1A come out too, in addition to the effect, which are both kind of like, you call them negative catalysts. As you can see here, they have put out another amended F1 even after the first one. And I guess lastly, real quick, we'll just show another similar example, NVOS, where this was a scenario where they also had a registration rights agreement. And as you can see, it sold off into that. And actually it was this day here. She gapped. I was actually thinking that it kind of sucked because I closed out the ZAPP trade, but that F1 came out after hours. It didn't gap down like I thought, even though it sold off quite nicely the following day or the following Monday. You see this came out on July 8th for NVOS. So you can see the pressure and then the gap down and sell off into that that registration. So it's funny. It's kind of like, and then it got bought back up. It's kind of like a sell the rumor, buy the news. So like opposite of buy the rumor, sell the news. That's it.